Hi everyone, this is Courtney for Ruby Red Farm. Today we're going to be spending some time in the greenhouse. So it is a cold and dreary day here in East Central Indiana. It was very hot this past week, and actually that warm weather is what really triggered us to realize we needed to do some work in the greenhouse to make sure it's ready for the warmer temps that are right around the corner. Branden went to go help out a buddy and do a favor for them, and so while he's gone, I'm going to spend some time organizing a little bit. We stored quite a lot in our greenhouse over the winter, and while that was on purpose, it still has gotten quite a bit messier than we intended it to. On top of that, then I need to start moving some plants into one of the other beds here. I've got some cabbage I'd like to plant today, and just kind of talk about our plans for how we're going to use the greenhouse this year. As usual, make sure to hit like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys being here. Let's get started. All right, so I'll show you our mess, but only if you promise not to judge me. It's a little chaotic on the other side. I picked the angle for my intro on purpose. So it is very messy on this side of the greenhouse. There's all sorts of chicken waters that are finally able to go back outside, and a lot of garden tools and gadgets that need to find a different home. In general, again, this stuff was more than welcome, but it is now mid-March and greenhouse season is really about to hit full swing for us here. We've not really used the greenhouse much the past couple of years, and we really intend to use it more this year, mainly for things like lettuce, but we're just gonna kind of trial and error and see how we do in these shoulder seasons like we planned on doing 2 years ago when we started this project. For now though, let me get some of this mess out of our way. It is much nicer in the greenhouse than it is outside today. I tried to come out and film a little bit out here yesterday, but it was just so windy that the wind was just whistling through the windows. Couldn't even get a word in, and finally decided, I think I'm gonna do inside stuff. So got our taxes done yesterday. Very exciting stuff here on the farm. Finally today though, I get to do a little bit of gardening. We had a handful of 70-degree days this week. In fact, it actually got up to 78 this past Friday. Very unseasonably warm for this time of year. And it took about everything we had to keep this greenhouse cool enough to keep the lettuce healthy. We had planned on putting fans in the greenhouse the whole time. And this week really was that big initiative saying, okay, it's time. So we've actually purchased 3 different fans. We're going to be installing those later today once Branden gets back, hoping to really make a big difference for keeping the temperature down in here. And we also have shade cloth purchased, but we've got to figure out how to use it. Quite frankly, again, all of this is new to us, and so we're trying to come up with a way that makes sense. With this being such a tall building, we need to find a way that we can raise and lower the shade cloth from the ground. And so we gotta get creative. Married an engineer, he'll help me out, I'm sure. But for now, again, we're trying to find ways to cool the greenhouse, because ironically that's become our bigger problem. It holds heat really well, but we can't figure out how to keep it cool enough in these strong Indiana summers that we end up getting. I think what we've got planned today will make a big difference. Ooh. Found an egg. We'll probably keep that one for ourselves. This is a much smaller shade cloth that actually a patient of mine donated to me. And while I was grateful, it's pretty small for the needs that we would have here. We will probably use it though in the garden. I may even use it as more of a vertical wall for things like tomatoes. We have really strong afternoon sun in our house. And when we first transplant those tomatoes, they really struggle in that strong afternoon heat and the clay soil. So again, probably we'll find a use for this, but it's not gonna be here in the greenhouse if I had to guess. The only thing I could see using it for in here is to potentially block some of the windows, just to keep some of the direct sunlight off of the plants. But again, to be determined. Grateful that my patient thought to give this to us, but we gotta find a good use for it. For Christ in me, for I've been born again. My heart is free, the hope of heaven before, the grave behind. Hallelujah, you brought me back to life. So I mentioned before, one of the struggles here with farming in East Central Indiana is the unpredictability of the weather. If you're from anywhere in the Midwest, we joke about how it can be every season within a few days. Well, we have quite literally had that here. And so it's been such a quirky swing where a week and a half ago, I had to use, this is the side of a tent that you would use to block the sun. I had to use this side piece of a tent to cover my lettuce plants because it was gonna get down to 29 that night. And I wanted to make sure they were good. And then within 2 or 3 days, I had to hang up the shade cloth to block some sun so they didn't get burnt. So again, we've had everything from 29 all the way up to 78 within about 5 days of each other last week. And so this week is much cooler, much more seasonable temperatures, but that just shows you just how unpredictable the weather is here. And I'm a little bit jealous of places that have steady, predictable temperatures. I love the seasons, I love the changes, but they're getting pretty squirrely here in recent years here in Indiana, where it becomes very hard to predict and plan when to plant things and when to have cover ready and available like we needed to last week. This works pretty well though if you have one laying around. So a lot of this kind of stuff we reuse from year to year. A lot of our items though are coming up on their 4th year of use and they're starting to show some wear and tear. We decided to invest a little bit more in some nice pots for when we transplant things. For one, I got the square pots because they fit much more neatly into these 10-20 trays. And on top of that, these are slightly flexible, but they've got a lot of rigidity to them compared to what I had before, where they will last a lot longer and they're a lot less likely to break. So I'll put the link in the description for these. Really, really big fan of them so far. Same with these 10-20 trays. I just got some new ones that are almost the thickness of what you would consider like a paint roller tray. They're really, really thick and they're not flimsy. I can carry this whole thing and it doesn't collapse. And this is pretty heavy actually. The problem I found with some of the cheaper ones that I bought off of Amazon is that if I had too big of a load and I carried it at the sides, it would fold up and crack right here in the middle. That happened all the time with my tomatoes. And then for our purposes, it's essentially useless at that point because we want them to not leak. We buy the ones that have no holes in them so that we can bottom water and just pour water into the tray and it waters the roots from the bottom up. So anyway, really happy with these. I bought a pack of 10. They were relatively expensive, but again, they will last many more years than the first batch that I bought. And I will link that in the description as well. But trying to, in a way, upgrade our equipment just a touch. Yes, we're still rookies. Yes, we still don't have the nicest equipment for anything, but I would like to have stuff that at least lasts and at the very least can last me through a season or two without me having to constantly worry about it. So really happy with these 2 things that we spent a little bit of money on this spring, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them too. This is broccoli, I believe. Yes. This is broccoli that I started about a month ago, and it's going like gangbusters right now. It's doing great. All right, that's about as clean as it's gonna get for now. This is still a storage area for us. So I got things how I want them, and I'm gonna go ahead and actually start working on one of the beds to get some cabbage planted today. So this bed here has been dormant since the fall. I'm gonna just pull out the few remaining weeds that kind of made their way through here. You may notice it's actually damp in a few places. That's where we still have some leaks in the roof of this building. Brandon has a plan. I think in general, we're gonna go up there and just kind of caulk some of the spots that leak worse than others. It's not a huge deal because it rained a ton last night and this is as bad as it got. It's not like it's bringing in a ton of water, but the obvious reality is we don't want that much water coming in through the roof of a building that's not supposed to leak. So we're gonna do our best to try to seal some of those, at least the worst of them, just so that we can control the water a little bit better. For now though, I'm actually gonna go ahead and turn this bed. This was really done up pretty nicely last year with some manure and different soils. And so I'm gonna be adding probably just 1 or 2 bags of some organic potting soil. We are not certified organic. In our opinion, it's just too much hassle for what it's worth. We can simply communicate with our customers and explain to them that we use all organic products. If we use any products, we try to interfere as little as possible with the plants. And on top of that, we're raising them ourselves, so we can answer all the questions. And that's something that a lot of places that you're buying from that are organic can't answer, which again, well, each their own. If you are a stickler on the organic part of it, by all means. In my experience, most local farmers either follow organic principles, or if they don't, they're gonna explain that to you and they'll be honest about it. I've had really good experiences with local farmers. I think most of them have very good intentions. I encourage everyone to find a local farmer that you can go grocery shopping at, because you're gonna get a far better quality with a much more honest and transparent understanding of how your food was raised. Plus, it tastes a lot better. Whew, all right, so I got that. Turn just a little bit here. Let me go grab this thing of soil. Talk to you how I got that soil too, because it's kind of a funny story. Let me go grab that bag and we'll get this looking a little real ready for planting. This organic potting mix we actually ordered through Lowe's. And funny thing was, with Lowe's, they have something going, and I believe it's still going now, that you could order these essentially in bulk. We got, I believe, 30 bags on a pallet that they delivered for free to our house. And it wasn't really that expensive. It's gonna save us a ton of money for the season as a whole, because for as many seeds as we start, we end up spending quite a bit of money on random bags of starter mix and potting soil and things like that. And so being able to just get it all here at the beginning of the year, not have to worry about it, and with the convenience of them delivering it right to our house, it was kind of hard to beat. Really happy with our decision. 30 bags goes a long way. We've probably only used about 6 so far. So we plan on using the rest of them as the season goes on. And the best part about it is that if we don't use them all, then we just put them in a safe place and we'll have them for next year. So it was really a no-risk situation. And I'm pretty happy with the quality. Once again, it's organic, so big fan. All right, I'm gonna mix this all in and spread it out just to give some new nutrients to this soil. We like to give the greenhouse dirt a little bit of love first thing in the spring, just to give it a little more food for the plants. We have a whole video out there how we put together these beds. We used quite a bit of wood down in the bottom from some sticks and other debris to fill up the space and save us money when we first built these. Over time, those will very slowly but surely break down and eventually provide some extra nutrition, but the main reason was just to save money and fill that space without having to spend it all on dirt. Because dirt's expensive around here. We live in a pretty rural area, which ironically makes it really hard to buy things like this in bulk. We don't really have a great organic supplier for things like this. And if we do, either I haven't heard about them or they're just so extremely expensive that I wouldn't dare spend that much money on dirt. So for now, these bags were a great option. I would love one day to get our own operation going where we really get the manure pile and the compost pile and all of that going. But on the scale that we're at, it's pretty tough to babysit that at the level we would need to with both of us working outside of the home. So again, this is my blank space here. I'm gonna go ahead and get some cabbages planted because that's what I'm hoping to accomplish today. Now, the trouble with cabbage is they get really, really big. If you've ever grown cabbage, you know that they're much more leaf than plant. So I'm probably only gonna be able to fit 5 cabbages in here, and then I will get another bed ready and plant the rest over there. But overall, these are 2 different varieties that I've grown one of them before. The other is totally new. These are Tiara cabbages. They're a little bit smaller. This actually seems to be more of what my customers like. Sometimes those huge, 8 to 10 pound cabbages just overwhelm people, particularly if they live by themselves. And so it's nice to have this smaller Tiara variety where these end up being, I would say, about 6 to 8 pounds, which is still a lot of cabbage, but it's a lot more manageable for one person. or a small family with no kids, that kind of a thing. We will water these in really well here in just a minute. I'll probably do all of the green over here. Then I have 4 of these guys, and so we'll just kind of do the leftovers in a different bed. If you're ever in the situation where they've gotten just a little bit root bound, this is pretty acceptable, but I always like to kind of tug them loose just to get those roots stimulated to grow a little bit more. And we're just going to tuck them right in here. Not necessarily burying them deep. I am just a tiny bit because the stems got a little bit leggy on these. That way they'll have a better shot of being stable. Nice thing about the greenhouse is there's no wind in here, which makes a huge difference. One other small change we've made with the seed starting operation, particularly with the lettuce, is based on advice from places like no-till growers. We actually have started using just a little bit of an organic fish-based fertilizer. I think it's called Neptune's Harvest or something like that. I'll put the link down in the description for that as well. Essentially, you dilute it. I bought a gallon of it, and it's going to last us probably the entire season because it's so diluted when you go to use it. But in general, what that can do is keep it from getting bitter, which is, of course, something very important when it comes to lettuce. And then the obvious as well is that it helps the plant grow, helps the plant put its energy toward actually making what it's supposed to be making, which is the lettuce leaves. And then it works really well with this cabbage as well. We have used it in particular anytime we have disrupted the process. So when we first planted the seeds, and then now that I'm moving these guys, I am going to put just a little bit of that fish fertilizer on here. And again, it's an organic fertilizer that just helps you be a little more successful when they're stressed in a situation like this one where you've moved them. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get bed number 2 ready here. In general, I don't mind the debris being in here. The problem is a lot of it has seeds on it, and so I'm trying to, at the very least, get anything that's real seedy out of here so that we don't end up with more of whatever this was once it warms up in here. Nice thing with these raised beds, though, is once we get going for the season, I can just grab our stirrup hoe and do a quick run through across this, and it's completely weed-free. And so hopefully we can consistently do that throughout the season. We won't, over time, have as many weeds to deal with. So right now, though, we're just still dealing with the original weeds from the dirt that we bought from the get-go. It must have had some weed seed in it, and we've been struggling at times to kind of control that weed growth. Mostly, ironically, in the off-season because we weren't coming out here and managing the beds very well. All right, I'm going to add a bag of dirt to this one as well. All set. Now again, normally we would add manure and some other things in here. I'm not messing with that this year. We will let the plants decide whether they need it or not. If we realize that things are just not growing well, we can always do like a top dressing of manure. But for right now, we're just gonna get things going and see how it does. This is called an Omero cabbage. It's a red cabbage. I believe it gets to be about the same size as that tiara. Most cabbage plants are pretty humongous. And so red cabbage is something that we've been wanting to grow for quite a while. We like it to eat, but we also have had quite a few customers, ask, do you ever grow any red cabbage? So we're gonna try it this year. Grows the same as green cabbage, so there's no real difference to it. The nice thing is that we also are looking to sell to that restaurant, and red cabbage was one of the things that was on their list. Now in a smaller amount than the green cabbage, but nonetheless, it was on the list. And so we're gonna grow some for them, but it was really kind of handy because we've been wanting to grow it for our customers for a long time. So red cabbage it is. And then I'm gonna save the last bed over here that's mostly ready for lettuce, because lettuce really is our big push this year. And so these other 2 cabbage plants are just gonna get left high and dry for now. I will probably plant them outside actually here within the next week or 2. We still have a risk for frost all the way through the beginning of May here in Indiana, at least the part of Indiana that I'm in. And so the general rule where I am, if you ask any gardener here in East Central Indiana, is to wait until Mother's Day. Now that is changing to an extent. They think basically related to climate change, but in general it always used to be Mother's Day. I am finding more and more that It's probably closer to 4 or 5 days, if not a full week before that. On paper, I believe May 10th is still what it says. I could be wrong, it's changed since they came out with the latest ratings, but in general, right around May 10th is when they say we're allowed to plant frost-prone things outside. Now, cabbage, of course, is relatively hardy and it can handle frost. Alrighty, that bed's all set with 5 cabbage plants, and then we will wait and see how they do as the season goes on. This is our lettuce bed. It is doing really, really well, except for a few spots where a chicken snuck in. We had a chicken sneak in and get a nice little buffet here, as you can still see in a few spots, but everything else is coming in great. These are all a different type of lettuce that we've never grown before. But these are Salanova lettuce, and this is through Johnny's Select Seeds. Really, really happy with the quality. They germinated really, really well. As also, we had probably about a 95% or higher germination rate. Just love the look of these lettuces. They're supposed to be a little more heat tolerant too. And again, we're hoping to sell to a restaurant, and so we're kind of trialing out some different types of lettuce this year. Also, my absolute favorite over here, these are called cheap frills. And they're just supposed to be more of a garnish type of a lettuce, and they absolutely crack me up. But super happy with how these are growing so far. And now that we're into March, this is nice lettuce growing weather where we will probably put the rest of them outside, but we may put one more batch here in the greenhouse before we do that. As I showed you earlier, we've got broccoli going really well. We got some other cabbage plants that we're going to leave in the trays just a little bit longer, and then we will actually plant those outside once we can get an area tilled and ready for them. All in all, though, really happy with how we've been able to use the greenhouse so far this year, and looking forward to using it even more as the season goes on. My work for now is done, and so I'm going to actually head back inside and work on some boring household things like laundry and washing eggs. But I'll wait on Brandon to get back from helping our buddy out, and then he has got some handyman kind of work that he's got to get done. So he's going to be running some electric and working on fans and lights for us. So I'm going to go take my break, and we'll pick up when he gets back. Quick check on the babies. They're doing great. We ended up selling quite a few of them this past weekend, and that's been a great decision. Down to probably about 175 birds left. They are nice and healthy and really coming along great. These guys are about 9 weeks old now. Our other laying hens are doing fine as well. We got about 175 of them out here, and they are cold and miserable because it is cold and miserable out today. Gotta love Indiana in March.
It's super windy outside. I'm gonna try to do this. I just want to be clear, I am not by any stretch a professional electrician. However, I have done a crap load of wiring. This is not new to me, so don't knock me too hard. I'll do it so it won't burn down. How's that? So what I am doing is over here by the door where that yellow wire stubbed out, that is going to be a light switch. I'm going to put one receptacle up here in the ceiling. I've got a couple light bars that I'm going to put in there. This corner right here, I'm going to put, I think it's a 10-inch fan that we got off Amazon. We'll put the link in the description. I'm going to put one here. Up here at the top, I have a 16-inch fan. I'm going to try to put it in. I haven't decided if I'm going to put it in the middle or offset it. I'm probably going to offset it, and Courtney may kill me for that, but I don't want to take out this metal stud. And then lastly, where the sheet metal's at over here, I've got another, I think it's a 10-inch fan that'll go mounted in there. With the fans, all I'm doing, they're 110, 120 volt plug-ins. I'm just going to put a receptacle in all 3 of those locations for the fans. And then that way they have their own thermostat and everything. So the thermostat will be set pretty low, especially for this time of year, because it gets really hot in here. And right now the windows are open and it's like 50 degrees outside. And I want to say it's still in the mid 70s in here. I actually have a little sweat going on. We'll get those 3 fans installed. We'll get the electrical run first. That way it is all set in stone, and then all I have to do is frame in the fans. The framing in is probably going to be the extent of handful 2x4 cuts. So should be pretty quick and simple. But that may have to take place tomorrow. Just depends on how long it takes me to run a wire, you know, up and over and all this fun stuff. So, be right back. So, just a sidebar here. I did not get any sponsors, but I do have red and yellow. I'm indifferent. This is not a tool review either. I do like the Milwaukee stuff. Milwaukee Fuel is a lot better than their standard Milwaukee brand, but this will also do. DeWalt, they're tried and true. I'm still a huge fan of DeWalt's, but again, I'm not biased. I have both now. So I wanted to bring these in here. These are Branden light bars, 5500 lumen. These are from Harbor Freight. They are cheap. They're like $22 a box. I'm gonna be using a bunch of them here. So I got 2 in here and I've got 4 going in the brooder in the barn. They are significantly cheaper than any other light bar that I've seen. I am welcome to be proven wrong on that because I'm sure somebody else has a better deal that I haven't found, but these are a 48-inch light bar. They put out a ton of light. I have had very good success with these. I use these in the loft, in the shop, just on the lower level, and they produce a ton of light, and that's a pretty tight area. Highly recommend it if you're looking for some shop light. Hashtag Harbor Freight. There's so much work to do in here. And out there. And over there, and over there, and over there. Just never ends. I just recently switched jobs to a fairly large company, corporation, if you will. I'm not going to name any names, but they do make pet food here in our area. And I tell you, it's been a good move. I worked for a company that previously was a family-owned business. I really liked them a lot. They did a lot of good stuff for the community. I have nothing bad to say about that organization. They're great people, but I didn't like the direction the company was going, and I figured it was time for a change. I was saying I started working for a new company about 3 weeks ago, and there's still very much a honeymoon period thing going on. But it is amazing to me that such a large corporation can actually take care of their people on an individual basis. Not all companies, large or small companies, can give you that kind of attention. I understand that. I'd always heard, work for a small company, they'll treat you like family. Sometimes family don't always treat family that great. I got along with 90% or better of the people that work there. And we're talking 100, 105 employees. I've done it. It's 12-3 wire. Not the right wire. Take 2. Got the right wire this time. In 6 years, I was doing the same job all 6 years. I worked my tail off. When it was time for a promotion, I got passed up. Keep in mind, I knew this business relatively inside and out. Knew all of our customers, got along with all of our customers, knew all of the product that we built, so on and so forth. But I got passed up on. They went with somebody they didn't know. That's fine, that's their choice. So then, I go to this other company, large corporation, they set me up with a coach immediately. Is it that hard? For the record, this is a lot easier with 2 people. I signed this coach. She's great. Super knowledgeable, been with the company for a long time. My point is, if you're a business owner and you have somebody who busts his butt for the company and is wanting to grow, why keep them in the same position that they're struggling with? And then question why the person wants to leave. Again, my boss was fantastic. The company was good. We made cool stuff. It was time for me to move on. Maybe one day We'll get to do this farming YouTube thing sometime. I hate Phillips head screws. With a passion. Motion violation. Do you mind running to the barn for me? On that table saw, there's a sawzall.
You need to pull the cord in.
What would you like it set at?
Right now, let's go like 65 or 60 even,
Okay.
so that it kicks on at 60.
60 or 74.
Do 60.
Diddy, get.
Ta-da!
Come on then.
Can already feel the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pulling that air in way more from the window.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it is.
Alright, we're in business. Got one going, he's gonna install 2 more, but I could already tell the difference the second he turned that on. It started pulling more in from the one window we had open. It's probably about 55 out today and windy and sunny, but in the greenhouse it's probably a good 75, potentially even 80 degrees in here. I'm hot in a hoodie. So that made a big difference with just one, and we're gonna have 3 total, so we'll see how this goes. Pretty simple system and really not that hard to set up, you just need power.
Two down, one big mammoth tube to go.
That one should make a really big difference.
Yep. So all 3 fans are installed, all the electricals run, I got lights in place. There's 3 fans, as I've mentioned before. There's 2 8-inch and 1 18-inch. They are all pushing air out, so it'll pull fresh air in from underneath. So they're all set at about 60 degrees, so we just tested all the thermostats and they seem to work fine.
These are just for when I run out here at 5 in the morning and it's still dark out. my quick afternoon in the greenhouse turned into pretty much the entire week of working out here off and on. I got quite a bit done in the beds and got some things going in here. And then Mr. Fix-It got quite a bit done. What else did you get done?
I got some electrical work done, got some lights in here, some fans installed.
Really feeling a lot better about our usability for the greenhouse now. I'm alarmed at the difference it's making.
Oh yeah, temperature-wise.
Temp-wise, it's a good 15 degrees cooler in here. And it was already a pretty cool day, so I'm optimistic for the hot days that we'll be able to keep it at a livable temperature in here where the plants will thrive instead of dying like they did last year. Going forward, really, we still have one more bed we wanted to put in. And then you had some shelving you wanted to do. So what were you planning on doing?
So I want to run shelving along that wall, and I also would like to get an automatic watering system installed.
Yeah, of some kind. It's not too bad because right now we really just don't have that much bed space, so it's not that much to water. But I have a feeling once our actual garden kicks into gear, I'm not going to want to be out here watering twice a day, every day, like I pretty much have been. So that would be nice. That's not a deal breaker, but I tend to be forgetful, so it'd be nice to give my plants a little bit of a better shot of success. Otherwise, really happy to be using this greenhouse during the shoulder seasons, hopefully going forward here. We're gonna go take a break, hopefully watch some basketball. This was Courtney
And Branden.
from Ruby Red Farm, and I hope you all have a great day.
Meow, meow, meow.